JP Morgan Chase for sponsoring this event. I would also like to go over a few ground rules before we get started. So all participants will be muted upon entry. Please do not come off mute until we open up the floor for questions a little later on in the event. This session is currently being recorded and will be made public on the Center State CEO website and also on the Generation Next social media page, Facebook. So if, you really enjoyed the event and you wanted to rewatch it, or, you wanted to refer someone to the event, they can visit the Center State CEO website and rewatch the event. The chat will be open for any comments and questions that you have, during the event, but we won't get into those comments or questions until the end when we open up the floor. And lastly, there will be a short survey towards the end of the event. We just ask you to provide your feedback to help us really incorporate all of your feedback into future programming and events. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our amazing speaker today, Darin Price. He is the co-founder of Right Price Companies, Inc. and Right Price Company Technology DBA. And I'd also like to take the time to read you all his bio. Darin Price was born and raised in Syracuse, New York, and attended Onondaga Community College and Syracuse University. Darin and his wife, Piers, as co-founders of Right Price Companies, built the company on strong Christian values. They believed in family, the community, and the potential of upstate New York. Right Price was founded 16 years ago with very limited resources. Their goal was to create a company that will leave a legacy, provide jobs, and positively impact the Syracuse community. Together, they have built Right Price into a multi-million-dollar company that does quality work and supplies excellent products through the Northeast with a goal to expand to other major markets. Right Price has two divisions, Right Price Companies, Inc., which specializes in selling commercial furniture, and Right Price Companies Technology DBA, which specializes in technology supplies and services, supplying fiber optic cable and other technology products, as well as contracting outside plants, inside plants, work such as antenna replacement, repair 5G, hanging aerial fiber, networking, and cabling. So as you see, Darin is a very busy guy doing some great work within the community, and also, as I mentioned, throughout the Northeastern region. So before we get started, Darin, was there anything you would like to say to the audience?
I'd like to say thank you for just taking the time out to come and, support, hear us, and, sit back. And I think we're going to have a good time this evening with just a casual conversation over the Zoom.
Definitely. I agree. Okay. All right, so Darin, normally when we have, people come in for the speaker series, they're from all over, from different states and stuff like that. But I think you're the first person that I had that's actually from the Syracuse community. So I just wanted to get a little bit of information about what it was like for you growing up here in Syracuse.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm honored that you chose me to participate in this, and I say thank you to you. What was it like growing up in Syracuse? Well, I'm looking at some of the faces. I'm that silver fella here. I'm a little bit older than you guys. And when I was growing up in Syracuse, we had no technology. I was talking to some of my friends. We remember we got our first microwave. We remember, growing up, we didn't have an answering machine and we didn't have call waiting. Mm-hmm. So the thinking about technology, that was something very foreign. That wasn't even in the verbiage. So, growing up in Syracuse, it was physical. And I always had the entrepreneurial spirit. Actually, when I was in 8th grade, I think I started my first business. And that was what you would call today lawn care, where I was cutting grass. And then I saw an opportunity because I was cutting seniors' grass, And then I saw the opportunity where they needed their basements to be cleaned out. They needed their garages to be cleaned out, their attics and whatnot. So I actually employed some of my friends, and we started a clean out business as well as the lawn care business. So I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. We got into high school, I was a jock, and because that's what was shown to us at that time, being African-American, when you looked at the people who were shown to you in TV, they were athletes, they were comedians, and they were entertainers, and they were singers. So you wanted to role model that because the goal was, you wanted to make money, you know? And so to role model something like that. So yes, I was an athlete, I was a singer, and I was a class clown, you know? And so my athletics is what took me to college, where I went to Hudson Valley and I played football at Hudson Valley. I don't think I talked about that. And I had the opportunity to go to Syracuse on a football scholarship, but because I had the background of a class clown, I didn't take that seriously. So I ended up going to OCC, went to SU, but I didn't play football at SU. And actually I didn't finish in SU. I took a job at UPS, and from there I took an opportunity. I was told, you know, it's time for you to get a career. So I took a civil service test and went to corrections, but I still had that entrepreneurial spirit. And with that spirit, you know, I purchased my first house when I think I was 23 going on 24. And because I read a book by a guy, Ed Beckley, Get Rich Off Real Estate. So I purchased my first piece of rental property, and I purchased another one. And me and a good friend of mine, he was starting a real estate company, Hez Real Estate, and he was the broker. And I said, well, I'll get my sales license, and I did that. And we got traction. That's how I got exposed into really getting out here doing business out of the real estate. And it's grown since then.
That's amazing. So when you say that, you know, people typically think of, you know, when you're Black, you can only be, you know, an athlete or a comedian, a rapper and stuff like that. How do we change that misconception, especially for kids coming up who, you know, may really believe that that's the only thing that they can be? And there, you know, there's a lot of other opportunities for them. Would you suggest we would, you know, can change that, even though it's a big job?
Yeah. How do you change that narrative? It's about exposure. It's really about exposure. It's about understanding. We got to get the kids to understand that there's so much more. They're so talented, and they got to be exposed to other across the lines. They've got to be exposed to it, and they got to realize that the people who make it in professional entertainment is very slim. Those numbers are very slim compared to if you want to be another type of professional, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to do other things. The world is limitless. So we got to get these kids exposed. We got to change their paradigm, the way that they think. We got to change that. And probably if I had that answer on how to, I'd probably be very, very, very wealthy. You know, so many people are wondering, how do we change that narrative for our kids?
Definitely. Great feedback. So just to shift gears a little bit, can you give us a background story of how you co-founded Right Price with your wife?
Yes, certainly. I think, well, I told you, I started selling real estate. And in real estate, again, I'm looking for opportunity. And at that point in time, the opportunity that I saw the guys selling commercial real estate were making a considerable amount of money. So I kind of shifted into that arena and started, you know, doing leases and what have you. And I soon found out that at that time, you know, the good old broke boy network was for real. They didn't have the multiple listing for commercial, and it was kind of who you knew and who your network was and who you wanted to share with. So I found myself kind of boxed out of that, out of that marketplace. But I wanted to get into something where I could still compete. And I did a lease for a company that sold furniture, supplies, office supplies, promotional products, which you call tchotchkes, printed material. And I was very interested in that, and because they seemed to be doing very well. And I said, I think I might have the acclimate for that. So what I did is I gambled, because at that time, you know, our money situation was limited. But I knew in my gut that I had to do something. And so I kind of volunteered to work for them and for no money, to learn their system. So it was a give and take, because I promised, you know, I said, well, at the end of the day, I can get certified as a minority business, and, you know, we can go, and there might be a portion of this where I can get some business as a minority, and I'll buy the products from you. But all the while, I knew that I needed to learn what they knew so I could grow a business. And so that's how I went into this. That's what pointed me into this direction.
Mm-hmm.
And as time went by, we got more comfortable and whatnot. I started learning more about the business. And when it was time to separate, I had a number of contacts in the furniture field. I had contacts. I knew where to go for the office supplies. And what was interesting is when I left there, again, not coming from having limited resources, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I have to give credit where credit is due. I have a friend who's an attorney, and I'll say his name, Vaughn Lang. He has a number of commercial real estate. And I met him because he taught legal issues in real estate. And I went to him to talk to him as a mentor. He didn't know that I was going to talk to him as a mentor, but I wanted to pick his brain,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And at that time, he listened to me and he said, okay. I said, you know, my wife, so I got to get out of the house. I got all this stuff around the house. I need an office. And I said, I'm thinking about buying a 2-family house, turning part of it into my business and renting the other. And he went in his drawer and he gave me some keys and he told me to go down and look at this building, which you might know, the Mission Restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
Right downtown Syracuse. And he said, the back portion of it is empty. I want you to look at it and tell me what you think. I never went. He called me up and said, what did you think of it? I said, Vaughn, I can't afford it. He said, I never asked you what you could afford. I want you to look at it. He said, go look at it. I said, okay. I didn't look at it. He called me and said, what did you think? I said, dude, I can't afford that, you know. He said, we never talked about price. Darin, go look at it. I went and looked at it. I called him. I said, Vaughn, it's nice. He says, what you need? I said, exactly. He said, okay, let's do the lease. You move in. And see, now, this is a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said, I believe in you. So what we're going to do is, he said, your portion of utilities, you put that in your name. What you do is, he said, this is what I pay for taxes. He said, a quarter of this is your responsibility. You pay that. And when you're doing better, you'll pay me more. We'll negotiate. But that's how I got my seed.
Mm-hmm.
Now from there, I understood I had to incorporate. So I incorporated Right Price, because I'm Darin Price and I'm the right price. And by the way, our price is always the right price.
Of course.
So I incorporated Right Price. And I called a company, United Stationers. And it just so happens that I had reached the territorial manager. And she was in there with her boss. And she says, well, we're going to be in Syracuse. And she said, you know, where's your office? And so at this time, the ink on the lease wasn't even dry yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave her the address and she said, okay, we'll be down, you know, this is Friday. She says, we'll be down there Monday. I had no furniture. So from the Mission, if you've ever been to the Mission, you know, in the summertime, they have those little plastic picnic tables outside.
Mm-hmm.
I borrowed a table and 4 chairs. And I told myself, I'm a salesman. I've got to pitch. Sell yourself. So they met with that borrowed Mission plastic furniture. And I started telling them my plan on how I was going to build their business. You know, and keep in mind, I said limited resources. Credit was horrible. I was just incorporated. And, you know, I knew that I had them when I started telling them that I was going to talk to a web designer so I could sell their products online, the office supplies and the furniture, and promote it, and promotional material and printed material. And this is what they said to me. He said, Darin, why reinvent the wheel? We already have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, okay, we're going to start you up with a small line of credit. And I said, that's all I need. And we worked it from there.
It's powerful. It's definitely powerful. So you kind of talked a little bit about, you know, the commercial, you know, furniture side of things, but could you tell us about, you know, the Right Price company's DBA, technology DBA?
Yes. So with the commercial furniture, I'll lead into that. The commercial furniture, we've grown this commercial furniture thing to the point where we've done commercial products throughout New York State. From New York City on up, or the SUNY system, you name it, we've done furniture there. But what was interesting, when we started doing systems furniture, we kept getting requests to network. So you could we could do the systems and set up the computers, set up your printers and everything, have everything to talk to it. At the same time, I had a guy who was doing my computers, Richard Sparks, and I would sub him to do the networking. And we started dialoguing, and I kind of absorbed him and brought him in, and that was the birth of RPC Technology. He has a technology background, I don't. You know, I'm a business person and I look at opportunities. So when we really came together and started doing technology products, we landed the contract for Syracuse Model Neighborhoods, for a number of nonprofits locally where we were actually servicing them. And then the supply piece came about where we got the opportunity to bid on SUNY Oneonta. They were putting a fiber backbone around the campus. And it came out and it was over a $500,000 job. We looked at it and we wanted to bid it. And so we saw a company, Annixter, who had specified it. So we reached out to them and met with them and you know, asked them if we could bid their products. And they approved us and we actually won the job. So coming out the gate, we came out with a job of supplies for fiber optic cable that was over $500,000. And we knew that we had to perform on that. So we, you know, as soon as we got paid, we paid Annixter. You know, you're on net 30 terms, but we said we wanted our credit terms to be straight. So as soon as we got paid, we didn't play money, we didn't play games with it, we paid it. Interesting enough, the contractor stopped paying us. And Annixter was like, okay, what's going on? And the contractor that we were dealing with, who was buying the product for us, who was doing the install at SUNY Oneonta, was not upfront with they were getting paid, but they're playing games with our money. And what really gave us points is when we went to the construction fund, New York Construction Fund, and we put a complaint in against that contractor. And that contractor was a big contractor. And because we did that, and New York State Construction Fund held the contractor's feet to the fire and actually told the contractor they were going to hold their money and then pay us directly with a dual check. Annixter recognized that we were serious about our business, and that made us have a stronger relationship with them. And so from the technology standpoint, from there, it grew. And moving forward, being in the supplies with the technology, then we heard about the broadband initiative that the governor was getting behind, bringing high-speed cable to the rural areas. We already had the relationship with Annixter, but we didn't have the relationship with manufacturers. And for us to play into that field, you've got to have a relationship with the manufacturers, because when you're putting your prices out there, you can't have a markup that's on top of a markup. I mean, if I'm buying through a wholesaler, they've already marked it up. So again, we went to the state and let them know there's no way that we can compete. You're talking about having utilization, but there's no way that we'll be able to be on the job if we're selling product that's already been marked up. Now we're selling it and we're marking it up. So the state agreed, and they called in Corning with several other distributors, diverse distributors, and they asked them, well, what does your distribution look like? And Corning couldn't answer that question from a diverse standpoint. Who did they have? So Right Price, RPC Technology, and a couple other companies got approved as Corning direct stocking distributors. And that led us into the marketplace, so to speak. Now, interesting enough, those other distributors since then are no longer in this industry, have fell apart, whatever, but we're still standing. And because of that, we're now operating, selling. I've sold fiber optic cable to date that can reach from here to the Mississippi River. And it's just a testament to just sticking to it. And like I said, integrity. You know, you make the agreement, you've got to stand by it. And so you say, you know, we're selling a commodity and you see some high dollar figures come in, but you have to understand as business, those aren't your dollars. You got to pay the supplier, the manufacturer, and you got to keep your credit lines open. And so it's been working.
How many other companies, you know, were granted the same opportunity? And then was this like a regional thing, or was this nationally?
Well, interesting enough, this is a New York State project.
Okay.
So what New York State wanted to do was keep those state dollars in the state.
Okay.
So it was us who was centrally located. You had a company from the Buffalo, I'll tell you, 3480 Group, Thurman Thomas's company, and you had another company from downstate, and you had another one that was from Albany District.
I see.
Okay. And like I said, we're the ones that are still standing.
That's great. So from, you know, your perspective, how, you know, did you reach this level of success in your business?
In business, like I'm sitting in this tasking chair, you got to kind of have your head on the swivel. You got to look at opportunities. You know, being a supplier right now, yes, we supply technology products. We supply fiber optic cable, connectors, computers, and all that. But I'm looking at right now, I have the ability to sell everything that you see on a telephone pole. All right. The margins for those supplies, because it's a commodity, is very slim. Where I need to be is in the service portion. Because anytime you do a service, your margins are that much higher. So that's how we got into aerial fiber, antenna replacement for 5G, because the margins are there. So you talk about where our next pivot is going to be. It's going to be going into there in a major way. Because what the government has done is they're releasing some money, billions of dollars, RDOF funds, to upgrade the fiber backbone throughout the country, because everything is getting faster and people in connectivity. And you know, years we've been paying for cell phones, and you wonder, what are all these taxes? A lot of those taxes are going into a piggy bank, and it's called RDOF, and now they're releasing those funds so we can update everything. So honestly, right now, if you were to order some fiber optic cable to do a job, there's a 6-month wait, because demand is there. You know, I'm looking at the next 10 years of being able to put crews out there to be able to work constantly around the year. So that's where we are.
That's amazing. How do you, I know you said you weren't really like into technology, and you met your partner and he really, you know, put you on all of the game around technology, but how do you, you know, jump into the industry and just excel at this level? How would you say, do you think that was easy, or do you think you just, you know, networked and worked your way around it?
Well, first of all, you got to understand, I like to say every good mechanic does not make a good business owner. Just because you can change a spark plug doesn't mean you need a garage. There's business acumen that's got to be involved. And when you understand how to run a business, it really doesn't matter, because your skill sets are transferable. You understand that you have to put the right people in the right place. Certainly, you have to have a functioning knowledge of what you're doing. That's a definite. But you have to have the product experts. You know, you have to put those, and you have to be a skilled talent agent, recruiter, so to speak. You have to put people in the place where they can excel. And you run the business. You know, you know, and one other thing I'd say to those who are on the line, is something called, you got to have your bail team. You're going to start a business. You have to develop a banking relationship, your accounting, your insurance, and your legal. That's your bail team, because you got to depend on those people. the other thing is you got to understand anyone that you cut a check to works for you.
I like that.
Okay? Anyone who cuts a check to you, you work for them. So if you're giving me a check, I'm going to give you the best service on this planet. But if I'm cutting you a check, I'm expecting that same thing from you. Mm-hmm. And we're going to speak the King's English because I need to know that you understand me and I need to understand you. Mm-hmm. That's it.
So what advice would you have for others that were, that would be looking to go in a similar direction as you?
I would say research. First of all, everyone has dreams, but a dream doesn't come a reality until you put it into a plan. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you got to know the direction that you're going. What is your plan? And then once you put your plan into effect, you start to look at other companies, other entities, other individuals who are doing what you want to do. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Get with them. Start hanging out around them. They don't have to know that you're their mentor. They don't have to know that you're looking at them, but start looking at them and start paying attention to the successful ones. And I would say someone who is not in business, don't listen to anyone who's not in business and who's not successful. Because you'll run into people who are the naysayers who've never ran anything or been in charge of anything or done anything that can give you some type of the best advice that they think they give you, and it just frustrates you. Listen to other business owners, listen to people who are out here doing it, and then move forward.
Great advice. So at this point, I would just like to open up the floor for any questions that you may have for Darin.
Hi, Marcus. Hi, Darin.
Hello.
I had a quick question in the chat. Darin, I thought it was so interesting. We're talking about the backup of the fiber cable. Mm-hmm. And the question was, is construction still happening with that fiber cable, or are things delayed because of that? Your opinion on it?
Absolutely not. We are essential workers.
Okay.
Let me tell you, when it was time to shut down, because of the pandemic, I'm an essential worker. I sent everyone home, and because of technology, we had everything in the cloud, voice over IP, but no one was buying furniture, but all of the companies are still laying fiber. You think about, we're on a Zoom right now. Mm-hmm. And so this thing is not going to stop. This is just going to continue, and speeds are not going to slow down. They're talking about 5G now. I'm engaged in conversations where it's going to be doubled. So, yeah, no, it's not going to slow down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have another question thank you, Megan, that was a great question. We have another question from Leticia. Coming from small beginnings, how did you build capital to continue building your company?
There's a saying, fake it till you make it. I used to say, I'm gonna look my best when I'm doing my worst. We put together a plan, and because of our track record, initially getting started, like I said, coming from very humble beginnings, people had to take chances on us. I had some family, actually my mother invested in me. My wife invested in me. There were times where I'm out here working and there's no money coming home. Other people are getting paid and we're not getting paid. It had to be complete sacrifice. Starting out, I didn't think that business loans were an option. So I had to be very frugal. And when I started this conversation, I told you about United Stationers, gave me a line of credit. That was my lifeblood, was that line of credit. And believe it or not, they started me out with about a $5,000 line of credit. They started me out with a $5,000 line of credit. And within my first contract, my first real contract was with Medicaid, Empire. And I was selling them, I started selling them all the toner for the Northeast. And that contract was, at that time, was about $78,000. And what it did for me, because I delivered them, I would drop ship the toner to them and they would pay immediately. So it was not a lot of money, but it was money that was constantly coming in. And I was on net 30 terms. So I had to keep in mind that I had to be a good steward with the money, but it gave me the opportunity to have money in my books that I could do other things with before I paid for that on the net 30 terms. So that really helped me grow, and keeping, like I said, the bail team, keeping my books and keeping my accounting together. When it was time for me to go for a small business loan, my records were in good shape. So my first small business loan, it was a little smaller, but I managed it. And then I grew it from there.
Thank you, Darin. We got another question from Leticia. What will you say is the most critical aspect of excelling in business, and more specifically, the tech industry?
That's a good question. I'm looking at the opportunities with the RDOF funds at this point, but when you're talking about excelling in the tech industry, I think it's the relationships that you build. You've got to go to the matchmakers and you've got to go into the networking events, because your products have got to be strong, and you want to get the best of breed products, products that'll sell themselves. So for instance, if you're selling computers, you definitely want to sell like Dell, something that you don't have to go in and explain, and you got to be a student of the market. What's coming along? The tech, we know that 5G is coming along. So how do you position yourself to be in that industry? How do you position yourself to be there? And then go after it. That's my thought.
It's a great question, Leticia. We got a question from Kelly. You spoke earlier about the good old boy network you came up against in commercial real estate. Do you continue to come up against those networks in your current fields?
When I talked earlier about shifting the paradigm, I've learned that I don't give those networks any thought or credibility. My eye is on a different target. So when I'm looking at opportunities, I could care less about them, basically. I know they're out there. I know there's a certain facet out here that will say, the only reason that you're where you are is because you're a minority. I could care less about them. I'm looking at doing business with the Verizons of the world. I'm looking at doing business with the AT&Ts of the world, and I'm not going to say no, that they're not going to do business with me. And I got a quick story about that one. I got a bunch of stories, by the way. It's I was selling real estate, and I was in an open house. I was holding an open house on Onondaga Hill and Farm Hill, and it was a $300,000 house. And I came from Hudson Street, and that house was probably worth $20,000. To make a long story short, I knew no one that lived in a $100,000 house. And I'm standing here in a $300,000 house on a Sunday, and every car that would pull up, I would come to the door, open the door, and people would look at me and they'd drive off. Mm. And that was very frustrating and disheartening. And I went back and I said, man, they're not going to buy a house from me. And I'm a black guy. They know I don't belong up here, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I spoke to my cousin who was a stockbroker. And he said, you got to change your paradigm. You've got to do a paradigm shift. And so, and I wish I could tell you the book. I can't remember what book it was that I read about paradigm shift that he referred me to. But the bottom line is, it starts with you. And once I learned how to change my paradigm, how to do a paradigm shift, all of a sudden I'm holding open houses, and they are going to buy houses from me, because not only am I the only black person they're going to see that day in real estate, I'm the baddest black person they're going to see. I'm the professional, and they don't understand and they don't know. And I got a knowledge base that I'm going to share with them, so they'll learn how to get the best house for their dollar that they can get. That's when you change your paradigm. And at that point, I went from a guy who didn't know anyone who lived in a house like that to being one of the top producers in Onondaga County in real estate that year, just by doing a simple paradigm shift. So when you ask a question about that good old boy network, they don't count, because now that good old boy network is looking at me saying, how can I partner with you?
I like when you start talking like that, Darin. Like, all right, Michelle, she has a question. Michelle, you want to ask your question?
Yes. Good evening. Thank you, Marcus and Darin. Darin, my question is, in layman's terminology, how is 5G expected to transform Black and brown neighborhoods and to eliminate technological barriers and access to capital?
You know, when we're all connected, you have more opportunities. With your story, how can that help Black and brown communities? When we bridge that digital divide as a people, you've got more opportunities. When you put a person who has an entrepreneurial spirit and has that mind, they're gonna naturally create opportunities for themselves. They're gonna bridge those gaps. What's been happening with us, we've always been left out. You think about when we grew up, we had no technology. We were put in a box. You know, we didn't realize what we didn't have, and we were happy because we didn't know any better. You know, you think about being in school. I never knew the advantage of being in what's the so-called good school, and we were in so-called bad schools. I didn't know the advantage. I didn't realize the advantage till my kids were in school. And we took our kids out of Dr. King when we moved to Cicero, and Dr. King had one classroom, and they called it the computer room. And half of the computers were broke, one room. We went to Cicero L and toured there, and every room had a row of computers in the back. And I asked the teacher, what's up with that? She said, oh, when the kids are done working, they can go on the computer. I said, what can they do? Whatever they want on their leisure. I said, so when you bridge that digital divide and our kids have the same opportunities, you'll see them excelling. I hope I answered your question, Michelle.
Absolutely. Thank you, Darin.
And then just to add on to that, you know, with those students going home and, you know, maybe their parents are working in technology fields and they have computers at home and things like that. But, you know, kids from, you know, the Black community, they go home, you know, their parents typically aren't working in technology. They don't have computers at home. So it like creates a larger gap. So definitely. Great question, Michelle. We got another question from Leticia. What are the brightest spots / opportunities in tech that you see now?
Of course, I'm going to say in fiber optic, anything dealing with high-speed cable, with 5G, anything with that piece, you know, I can only talk to my knowledge base. You know, I look at, you know, the people that I have to hire, the engineers and the type of positions that I could never imagine growing up that are just like booming. And I would say, definitely, this is the arena to be in. This is the field to try to get a piece of.
We have any other questions?
I'm a big guy. I'm not that intimidating, am I?
Nah, these are some great questions, though.
I have a quick question. Darin, this has just been a really, really fantastic presentation. So I just want to say thank you very much. And I know you said you're a salesman, and initially in your earlier story you talked about how you were selling you. But how might you sell technology and the opportunities in technology to some of the people that we have in Syracuse who may not have the same vantage point that you do? Because it is such a really super cool field. But I'm interested in how you might pitch that to them.
I'd love to be able to sit down with them and see what they're passionate about, because you're talking about a vast field. And because ultimately you have to sell yourself. You have your knowledge of the product that you're selling, the service that you're selling, but a portion of that has got to be a part of you. So I'd love to sit down and find out, what people are passionate about, so we can kind of like bridge that gap. So, because sales is that's it for me. I'm passionate about selling, and it doesn't matter what it is. It's just you have to get some knowledge on it, and I love what you do.
Mm. Thank you, Kara. That's a great question.
Yeah, that was a great question. I know that was very vague, but I just, it's a broad field.
Thank you. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think in many ways that's part of the challenge, right? Is that people don't necessarily see all of the opportunities where their passions intersect with technology. Mm-hmm. And it is, and to your point, you talked about your head being on a swivel, like I'm seeing what's happening here and I'm seeing what's happening there. And I think it's a really, I appreciate your answer, and I think that it is, it's completely on point. It has to start with you, but in feel it's so broad, it does seem like it's a real challenge to show people what all of those opportunities could be.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question from Kelly. What do you look for in potential employees?
It depends on what position that I'm putting them in, right? So right now we're looking for climbers. We're looking for people to hang aerial fiber, right? So these are people who don't mind being away from home, who have to be self-motivated, and who have to go out and be able to do manual labor, okay? The positions pay good, right? But they have to work out into the elements. So you're looking for that person who is self-confident, who is pretty physical, and who's willing to work and has got to have integrity. Their eyes have got to be clear. They've got to be able to pass a drug screen, and they have to be adults. Now, when I'm looking for a salesperson, there's another skill, and I can point another salesperson out from a mile away, because they're that A personality. I get that feel from people. But it depends on what position I'm looking to put a person in as to what skill set that I'm looking for. More technical positions, I'm looking for a foreman. A lot of times I'm looking to headhunt somebody. Basically, I'm looking to steal them from someplace else. Because if they have a track record, if they're a foreman, I need to clone that person. And so inside the industry, people get reputations, and those are the ones with the good reputations you want on your team.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Darin. Leticia, what resources do you know of that are available for starting a business and for breaking into tech? What's next for Right Price? 2 questions.
Okay. As far as the resources are concerned, honestly, there are, I don't know how many people you see me, on the commercials. Pathfinder is my bank. We're at the point now where we have banking relationships. But when we're talking about starting a true startup, I don't know about the loans or what have you. I do know about up at OCC, Joan Powers, small business Center, the SS Southside, the SSRC, them to help you. The first thing you're doing is when you're starting your business, you put together a plan. And then after you have your plan, you can build it from there. And I know that you've heard that 100 times if you're talking about starting a business, but it's real. You don't go anywhere without a plan, and your plan will tell you what you need. So I don't care. And like I said earlier, when you're in business, the skills are transferable. And so whether you're starting a technology business or a dog grooming business, and I'm saying this in dog grooming and but the skills are transferable. You got to have a plan. You have to know exactly what your business is going to look like. And then you can tweak it from there, but that'll tell you how much money you need and what type of resources you need. We all think about starting in a huge manner, but you can do certain things very small and learn your craft. If you're talking about networking, there are so many small agencies that need companies to come in and service their network. Because either you have the very big who price themselves out because they have so much opportunity, but the small companies, they need people to come in and network. You don't have to be huge to do that. This is a business that you can run out of your house and grow up from there. And when we're talking about the dollars, the service dollars with that are very large because you're billing out your time. So that money is your money, and you can grow it from there, and you can start your tech business just like that. You're muted, brother.
Yep. What's next for Right Price?
Well, Right Price, that's what I'm talking about. Growing, okay. Growing in that fiber space.
Okay.
The next thing is you'll see Right Price building cell towers. Mm-hmm. That is our goal, is to build cell towers. So you look for those red shirts with the RP on it, the RPT on it. And so you'll see someone with a vest with an RPT on it and a hard hat. We're building cell towers on the side of a mountain. That's our goal.
Okay. We have a question from Krista. You mentioned some of your mentors. How or who have you passed on similar knowledge and guidance?
Who changed my life was Dr. Miles Monroe. He's passed away, and I encourage you, anything that he has written, get it, okay? I was in Cleveland at the George Frazier Power Networking event, and a good friend of mine, Daryl Andrews, Coach D, he's a motivational speaker and an author. I'd been out networking all day at this Power Networking event, and I just wanted to go and lay down. I went up to the hotel, and Daryl called me and said, where are you? You got to get here. I need you to meet Dr. Miles Monroe. And I was like, whatever. He said, get here. I met this man, and he changed my life. When he talked about networking, and he talked about how we were designed as a people for this. We're not designed to answer to other people. We're designed to live off of everything that we kill. We are hunters. And when he spoke, he really changed my mind. When you talk about a light that goes off and how your paradigm shifts, he was the one for me. And I followed him until he passed away. And, he had started talking about, because he was from the Caribbean islands, and the house that he grew up in had a dirt floor, and he said you could lay on the dirt floor and look up and see the sky because it had holes in the roof. Mm-hmm. And he said he went from there to owning several of his own private jets, where he was paid $20,000 an hour to speak. Mm-hmm. And I said, if this guy can do that, I know I can. The only thing that's holding me back is myself. And that's what put me on a path. And so, yes.
It's powerful. So we got time for about one more question. Liza, I know you just hopped back in, but you don't got any questions? Liza always have questions.
I had a teacher conference. No, but I'm over here just like, yes, like just preaching. Like I love all this energy and really want to push this conversation out to the community because I think it's one that definitely needs to be heard. And it's all about like access and support, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's not a handout. It's just give me the access and the support and I will take it from there. So this is very inspiring. Thank you, Darin.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, if we don't have any more questions, I do have the survey that I mentioned earlier. I just dropped the link in the chat. When you get a chance, please, open that up and take that. And we'll truly appreciate your feedback. Just share my screen. Sorry. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who came to support the Tech and Culture Speaker Series. Thank you, Darin, for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. It's truly appreciated. If you want to visit the Center State CEO website for any resources or upcoming events, you can visit the website. You can also connect with us on Generation Next social media on Facebook and Instagram. And also, if you have any questions about tech and culture or how you can get involved in the future, you can reach out to me personally. I can drop my email in the chat for everyone to reach out. So again, thank you for coming to the Tech and Culture Speaker Series. And Darin, do you have any last things you want to say to the audience?
I just like to, thank you guys. I'd like to thank you. And, like I said before, and I'll say it again, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You guys are built for this. You guys are the next generation and you're going to take over the world. And so don't be afraid. Keep your mind open, keep your head on the swivel and go after it. Don't listen to anyone who's not doing anything to tell you how to do something. You do it because you're the expert. And thank you.
Thank you so much. This is great. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Great job too, Marcus.
Appreciate it, Megan.
Have a good night, all.
Have a good one.